The UN voted on a resolution today declaring that the transatlantic slave trade was the gravest crime against humanity.
Okay, guys, what this I hear about the UN officially dubbed the transatlantic slave trade as the greatest crimes against humanity? Okay, what the heck is going on here? Alright, in case you guys don't know, a couple days ago, the UN, 120 something countries all agreed that the transatlantic the slave trade that pretty much brought African slaves to the Americas and the Caribbean and South America, is viewed as a crime against humanity, and reparations should be given. Now that is pretty wicked insane. What the heck is going on here? Where's my manners? My name is Infamous Being Coming people. Welcome back. For the new people that don't really probably clicked on this video and probably don't know who the heck I am. Well, I'm just a YouTube artist slash I guess film critic slash social commentator. I pretty much commentate on what was it, everything that's been going on TikTok and give my own 2 cents on it. I mean, well, the new, commenting on TikTok and all that stuff, that's kind of new for me. But mostly I do art and mostly film and movie critiques or so. And also draw digitally and stuff. Or just draw in general on my channel. Anywho, we're gonna watch some TikTok clips, and at the end of this, I'm gonna give you my own 2 cents on this whole thing. So, like, share, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, check me out on DeviantArt. The links to everything is down below. And guys, if you want to get my videos before they even show up on YouTube, head over to my Patreon page. Again, link is down in the description.
So the UN passed a resolution identifying the transatlantic slave trade and subsequent activities and fallout thereafter, crime against humanity. And the resolution urges all the countries involved to do a formal apology and look into what reparations looks like for all of those impacted. Of all the nations that voted, only 3 nations voted no, and that would be the United States of America, Israel, and Argentina. 52 nations, largely the European bloc, abstained, and abstention basically is a no. And their reasoning was this will put a hierarchy on atrocities and grief. This coincides with the post I made about the Holocaust and about how the Holocaust has been identified as the greatest atrocity to ever happen to mankind. It is one of the greatest atrocities to occur. It's not the only one. And the fallout from the transatlantic slave trade is not just those 12.5 million people taken from Africa or those 3 million people who died during the Middle Passage. It is 400 years of oppression, racism, systematic racism and oppression, raping, lynching, slavery, trauma, bondage that is still happening today. I am a product of the transatlantic slave trade. I would not be here right now in this form, speaking in this capacity, without my ancestors being taken from where they were from, me being a product of America and the Caribbean and mixing with natives and white people, and my great-great-grandmother raped by a white man, and that's why I'm 17% Scottish. There's a lot to unpack when it comes to being black and a product of the transatlantic slave trade. So many people died as a result of the transatlantic slave trade en route during the Middle Passage that sharks actually changed their migration patterns to feed off the dead Africans that were in the ocean. The country saying, we don't want to identify that. They don't want to identify it because those who abstained are the ones who are the greatest perpetrators of the transatlantic slave trade. We're talking about the UK, France, the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany. All of those countries are the ones who spearheaded the transatlantic slave trade. It's crazy because these countries would rather abstain and say no than to accept their role in the harm, the irrevocable damage and harm that was done to not only the African continent, but done to the natives and done to us. I always tell white people, you really don't understand the totality of what it means to be a black person from the Americas and understand your history and understand the systems that you're placed in, especially if you're a black American or Brazilian or anywhere where you're a minority in your country. We exist at the precipice of racism, anti-blackness, and racial hierarchical systems that are meant to oppress us till this day. And like I said, it's not just slavery, because the transatlantic slave trade subsequently led to the colonization of the entire continent of Africa, which some economists estimate roughly $130 trillion of resources and human resources were taken and extracted out of Africa because they haven't had the chance for self-determination and autonomy due to colonization and to theft of human capital. And I don't think people really think about the totality of what the colonial era of the world meant, Because when you meet anyone that's Brazilian, Jamaican, Haitian, Black American, Trinidadian, Asian, Dominican, Puerto Rican, the list goes on. We all exist, all of us exist as a product of the transatlantic slave trade and colonization. The 60 million natives that died from Canada down to Argentina in the Great Dying are also a byproduct of the transatlantic slave trade and colonization of the quote unquote new world. I just think it's very interesting that the countries who are the reason that we exist and the reason we speak these languages and the reason there is anti-blackness around the world and racism around the world and racial hierarchies around the world all abstained or voted no. So when I say there is a hierarchy to grief, that hierarchy coincides with race, and black people are always on the bottom and the chopping block, clearly. Stay black, stay blessed.
So what happens next? Well, nothing. Because the UN adopting this resolution is not legally binding. They can't force a country to comply. No country gets sanctioned, no courts get automatically opened. To put it plainly, nobody's writing us Black Americans a check tomorrow. But 123 countries going on record saying that the transatlantic slave trade was the gravest crimes against humanity in recorded history does matter, because that tells us that that is the moral standing and belief of majority of the world's countries. Even though it's not real, the USA and Argentina voted no, and the UK and the EU nations all voted not to vote. So why this matters is because Caribbean nations already have the framework for reparations. They were colonized by Britain. So this resolution just handed their lawyers more ammunition. So African nations can now use this in negotiations with former oppressive and colonial powers. Basically, they can now say, oh, you want aid packages? You want trade deals? Well, let's talk about the debt that you owe. In regards to the transatlantic slave trade and the descendants of slavery being owed reparations, now they have the UN backing and the moral agreement of the majority of the world's nations to back them. And in international court, this resolution becomes evidence of the global consensus. The crime occurred, the harm was done, and it's never been addressed. What doesn't happen is that the USA is not real and Argentina are not going to suddenly change their minds, and the UK and the EU nations are not going to suddenly say, you know what, we're going to vote yes, we changed our vote, and we're going to start writing checks. That's not going to happen. At least not tomorrow. Think of this resolution more as a moral verdict without a bailiff. So the real question is whether or not the 123 nations that voted yes have the will to enforce what they just told the entire world that they believe. And if we're looking at things historically, baby, we all know that's the hard part.
The UN voted on a resolution today declaring that the transatlantic slave trade was the gravest crime against humanity. You want to know which countries voted no? You want to take a wild guess? America, Israel, and Argentina voted no on a resolution against the Atlantic slave trade. If you ever have to wonder to yourself if we are the bad guys, we are. Every single time we are. Without a fucking fail.
Guess which country voted against it? So the UN General Assembly on March the 25th adopted a resolution declaring the trafficking of enslaved Africans the gravest crime against humanity and calling for reparations as a concrete step towards remedying historical wrongs. The resolution, spearheaded by Ghana, received 123 votes in favor. 3 countries voted against it. Guess who they are? The United States, Israel, and Argentina. 52 countries abstained, and that include almost all European countries. The resolution also urges the prompt and unhindered restitution of cultural items, including artworks, monuments, museum pieces, documents, and national archives to their country of origin without charge. What do you think?
Okay, guys, I'm gonna make some things clear. Before I give my own 2 cents, 1, I'm a Black American. Whatever I say does not reflect the entire Black American community. What I say does not speak for the rest of every single Black American living in the United States. 2, I am not a professor, I am not no psychologist, economist, or, I don't know, a political scientist, or anything related to geopolitics whatsoever. I'm just giving you my own thoughts and perspectives based on the information I automatically know, or that I have recently looked up. So again, don't take my word as gospel, and do your own research. And of course, like all the facts and information I will be talking about in the video will be linked down below, so yeah. Okay, to be honest with you guys, I was like freaking the heck out, like what in the heck? The majority of the world finally admits that the transatlantic slave trade was like the most fucked up thing in the world. I mean, that's crazy. Even countries that had nothing to do with slavery at all, even they agree. Alright guys, let me show y'all the list for a second. Okay guys, being dead honest with you, I was surprised that, like, even countries that did not participate in slavery, or had never, like, participated in the transatlantic slave trade, even they said yes. Even some Middle Eastern countries, like, agreed on this. Even Lebanon, Syria, like, bro, from what I've been hearing, like, about, like, those countries in particular, those countries have like a very, very negative relationship with people of African descent anywhere, especially in Lebanon. From what I've been hearing, like they, what was it? Like when they have like African, like, what was it? Workers, specifically like maids and stuff, that they pretty much like, fly in and to like get them and stuff. They pretty much strip them of their passports and basically treat them like slaves. Bro, even I'm surprised that they're even like agreeing that the transatlantic slave trade was bad and need to be considered a crime against humanity, though. That is nuts. And also, China and Russia, well, Russia, okay, it's not a surprise that Russia would even say yes, because, hello, they have beef with the United States. Two, keep in mind, like, Russia has been, like, anti-imperialist, they're against imperialism, and capitalism as well. Not only that, bro, the Russians do not play. Like, if you ever, like, be racist to, like, a black person in Russia, bro, trust me, the Russians do not play that crap, man. They will literally, like, throw that person in jail immediately. There's some real serious consequences for that person doing and saying something racist to a black person in Russia. Like I said, Russians don't play. China, okay, this could have been like another like strategical plan for like, well, the China to have more influence within like the African continent as well. But from what I've been hearing from my black brothers and sisters in Africa right now, I mean, even though there have been like some like negative experience with the Chinese in like, what was it, in Nigeria, like how they're like abusing people and stuff. But compared, like, the Chinese to, like, any other Western country, specifically Western European country, that did formally colonize them, the Chinese were even treating them way better than them. And honestly, though, not surprising at all, though. I mean, well, okay, China was a little surprising. Let me rephrase. Okay, let me start over. China, surprising to me, honestly, though. Alright, let's talk about those 52 countries that pretty much abstained from voting in, like, saying, like, the transatlantic slave trade was bad. 90% of those countries, like, came from the European Union, which, of course, had, like, France, Germany, was it the UK, Spain, Italy, and Portugal, and of course, like, the countries I mentioned, these are the same countries that started colonizing, like, start colonization in the first place, especially Spain and Portugal, because again, the whole reason why the transatlantic slave trade exists in the first place was because, one, Spain and Portugal needed to bring more African slaves over there because the indigenous communities have died. Those countries heavily benefited from the transatlantic slave trade. And for them to like say, oh, slavery was bad, yes, we participated in the slave trade, but why does that matter now? Like, can we just forgive and forget? And I'm gonna say this as harshly as I can. I'm say, hail to the no. Nope. All those countries pay up. Another couple things that shocked me though, is like, even countries like, let's say, in Eastern Europe, like, let's say, I don't know, Latvia, Romania, or, Ukraine, they had no, like, hand in the transatlantic slave trade. They didn't even benefit from the transatlantic slave trade at all. Okay, maybe they did, or maybe I didn't get to that part, or probably don't know that. But point is, These countries had nothing to do with slavery at all, or the transatlantic slave trade at all. Why are they not like saying nothing like against it or being in favor and recognizing the fact that the transatlantic slave trade was bad? I was disappointed in the fact that Ireland like stayed like was it pretty much abstained from the whole conversation. Hold on, no. Keep in mind, even though Ireland did not, well, actually, there's a little, I mean, it's a little complicated with Ireland, but all I know is that, like, Ireland was controlled by the British at one point, and pretty much, the British pretty much was, like, ruthless towards the Irish people, like, absolutely ruthless. Remember that whole potato famine that happened, like, was in Ireland, like, over 100, oh, what was it, well, almost 200 years ago? Well, you can thank the British for that. It's not really a real famine. Basically, the British wanted to starve them to death, because I forgot what the reason was, but all I know is that the British practically starved them to death, thus drove in like a large portion of the Irish community at the time to pretty much go to America. So, yeah. I'm surprised that they're pretty much saying that, can we just think about it? Guys, if you haven't been paying attention, like on TikTok or your FYP, you probably have seen like some Irish people pretty much telling people, like, hey, you can't celebrate St. Patrick's Day without like being like pro-Palestine? Because, because like everything that Israel is doing to Palestine right now, it was the same type of thing that the British used to do to the Irish. In other words, the Irish people can sympathize and empathize with the plight of the Palestinians. The Irish diaspora in the United States kind of have like a very complicated relationship with Black Americans in particular. I mean, there have been cases where pretty much like the Irish did like play a role in slavery, being like the slave catchers and slave patrol, and there were some that were abolitionists as well. But the point is, like, out of, like, all countries that have been affected by, like, colonialism, the Irish people should be 100% agreement with, with, like, the rest of the world saying, the transatlantic slave trade being, like, a crime against humanity. Alright, y'all, the moment you guys been waiting for, the three countries have pretty much said no. The United States, Israel, and Argentina. Okay, let's be honest. It's no secret that the United States would automatically say no, because let's be honest, everything that's going on right now, civil rights being like taken away, voting suppression gone, or is about to be gone, and Black American history actively being erased and silent. So, not a surprise that like the United States would automatically say no. Argentina, well, I did a little light history research on Argentina. Centuries ago, they did have like a sizable black population, but they keep sending the black men into war after war after war to basically kill off like all the black people to replace them with more European immigrants to whiten their country. Argentina is well known for being like the white country in South America. Let me be specific. The white Spanish-speaking country in South America. And given the fact that it's been well documented that there's been a lot of racial tensions and a lot of racial violence and attitudes within Argentina. So not surprising at all at that point. Not really. Also, something I want to add here is that the funny thing about that is in case you guys don't know or don't remember, Argentina did help some Nazis flee flee from the world after World War II was over, so that way they can widen the population too. So Argentinians or Argentines, whatever you want to call them, turns out they're also descendants of Nazis too. So again, not surprising too. The one thing that shocked me and doesn't make any sense, why is Israel saying no in the first place? Israel had no hand in slavery or the transatlantic slave trade, and knowing that they didn't benefit from it at all. I think the reason why they probably said no, I mean, this is just my personal opinion here. I think they're saying no because America's saying no. Because let's be honest, if the United States cut ties with Israel at this point, Israel is done, it's finished. So it's probably agreeing with the United States to keep the country still going, still alive. Because Israel's become very unpopular these days because of the war with Iran. So, yeah. Guys, I just want to say this. Okay, for anyone who is from Ghana, and thank you to the from Ghana's president too. Bro, thank you. Thank you, Ghana, for bringing this up. Thank you. And the fact that the majority of the world agrees, that's insane. Man, I'm telling you, 2026 gotta be the most craziest year for black people everywhere around the world at this point. And here's like a way bigger picture than this. Not only that, if it's possible for black people to get like reparations from the transatlantic slave trade, then it's possible for like all the other countries and all the other nations that have ever been colonized by France, Spain, Portugal, the United Kingdom. If it can be done for black people, it can be done for all of us. For all the people that were ever brutalized or victimized by, like again, like those same countries that I just mentioned. There's this content creator by the name of Onyx, or The Onyx on TikTok. I highly recommend that you guys like give him a follow, show this dude some love, because I'm telling you, man, like, he be spitting his facts, man. He really do know what he be talking about, so I highly recommend you guys check him out and give him a follow. Let's hear him out.
On the transatlantic slave trade as the greatest crime against humanity and demanding reparations. Let's start with the ones who disagreed, because that's where the fun is at. Number one, and that's the United States. Not surprising at all. We all saw this coming from a mile away. Number two is Israel. I'm starting to see a pattern here. And number three is Argentina. Also, not surprising at all. The United States, in its 250 years of barely living, has eliminated, murdered tens upon tens upon tens of millions of people and has committed countless genocides. They still do it to this day, attacking, pillaging, conquering, and colonizing any country they want and they see fit. Not to mention, America is incredibly fucking racist and sexist all the way around. Israel's not surprising. They have committed multiple genocides. They're trying to conquer the Middle East, and they're trying to eliminate God's actual chosen people, which are the Palestinians. Last one is Argentina. It's like I got foresight. I saw this coming. I predicted the future. Forget strange. They call me Dr. Usual because ain't nothing strange about this shit. Argentina literally has a racial system. They're quite literally one of the most racist countries you can ever step foot in. They murdered most of their indigenous, a lot like the United States, and most of the people who are black and brown, yeah, they eliminated them too. And they pride themselves about them being more light than the rest of South America. It's almost like the United States, Israel, and Argentina are three peas in a pod. Triplets. As for the ones who abstained, the entire European Union, including Australia. Go figure. Portugal transported over 6 million Africans for slavery. As for Canada, it was 50-50. As much work as they've been putting in to make themselves better, this confirms it that they still need a lot of work to be done. And the reason they abstain is because of reparation liability. They don't want to be involved and they don't want to be blamed for it, even though they're the sole reason for it. Spain, Germany, the Netherlands, they got a massive death count on their belt. So them abstaining says a lot more about them than it says about the rest of us. Besides the obvious that abstained, everyone else pretty much agreed, besides the 15 countries that was absent. It's almost like black people's greatest enemy is the West. The East is looking at us, it's like, you can come over here anytime you'd like. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna take you up on that. I'm going to immediately make and upload a part 2 on all the countries that agree, so look out for that.
Alright, now here goes my own 2 cents on this one. I mean, I know I've been giving my 2 cents on this whole thing so far, but I wanted to like add a little more my own personal opinions about this. Obviously, I'm supportive of this, obviously. I did develop my own idea of what reparations would look like for the United States in the case of like FBA. In case you don't know what that means, pretty much it's an acronym of Foundational Black Americans. Pretty much this term is designed to like replace the old term African American, people who descend from American child slavery from the 1600s all the way to 1865. Yeah, but I did come up with my own idea of how reparations is gonna work, but I can't really say what I want to say on here because, well, obviously, YouTube, too, and knowing that I don't want to take no chances of anyone stealing my ideas, so, yeah. So, ideas about reparations, at least what I think we should do, or at least what the government should do, I gotta keep that on the hush. Alright, y'all, that's it. That's all I gotta say on this. To be honest, man, I'm glad that this whole thing's happening right now. And, bro, like I said, this is crazy. The world that we're living in is crazy right now, but I'm glad that this is happening. And I'm definitely visiting Ghana one day. I'm definitely doing it. Make sure to subscribe, follow me on Instagram, tell me how to do an art. The links to everything is down below. And guys, if you guys want to support what I do and want to get my videos before, like, YouTube, head over to my Patreon page.